What is something that someone said to you that is so stupid you thought they were joking? We were watching the channel about a couple of murderers that were executed. During the reenactment scenes, dude next to me says that's cool that they let them out of prison to film this. A kid from my neighborhood was famous for two things. One was starring in a reenactment of a mugging on a national TV show, and the other was getting beaten up by a little old lady who saw him on TV the night before and decided to make a citizen's arrest. My shift lead at the microbiology lab I work at told me that they believe that dinosaurs didn't ever exist, that they were mythical beasts like unicorns and it'd be cool if they were ever real, but they weren't, so it's not. She also said that all fossils found are fakes to just get publicity. My 4-year also thought this, except the fake fossil part. I was waiting tables and a customer asked me for a water to go, but no ice please. I have a long drive and I don't want it to get watered down. I started to laugh but realized she was serious, so I repeated the order politely. Okay, water, no ice, thinking maybe she had meant to order a soda or tea or something and had misspoken. But no, she genuinely just didn't want any ice to melt in her water and water down her water. If I was super tired, I'd definitely say something like that. I was on a road trip with my wife and I had just woken up and I remarked, "Hey look, cows." She honestly responded, "Those aren't cows, they aren't black and white." I laughed, thought she was joking. Nope, straight up thought all cows were black and white. Should have told her the brown cows were for chocolate milk. See how long you could keep it going. A girl told me she had to delete some photos off her phone because her phone was feeling too heavy. Same girl thought potatoes grew on trees. Lots of questions from customers in the rafting industry. At what elevation do deer turn to elk? Who puts the rocks in the river? Where are the tracks that led the boat? As if the Whitewater River trip is at Disneyland and the whole thing is a ride. At the put-in, can't I just leave my things here, so they'll be here when we get out? Tons of people think you take out on a river at the same place you put it, like it's a circle and the current goes back uphill. I'll have to think of some more. My roommate for my freshman year in the dorms told me he didn't eat phallic shaped food. Carrots, cucumbers, bananas, beans, peas, anything remotely elongated. I thought it was a joke and played along. Banana bread? No way. Chopped up carrots? Nope. Peas out of the pod? Still from something phallic. We went to the cafeteria and I realized he wasn't joking. Guy was generally pretty cool, but that's some weird penis issues. School I worked at had a long-term sub in 8th grade because nobody wanted the position. One day in the lounge I mentioned how one of her students was really annoying. I'm the art teacher, and she goes, "UGGGH, that little retard is so freaking annoying. He's trying to learn German too." I didn't respond because she just called a student a retard and was also trying to understand why him trying to learn German made him a retard. Then she goes, "Here's what I wanna know. German and Japanese, is they different?" I stared at her for a while thinking she was making a joke, but she kept waiting for an answer. When I explained German came from Germany and Japanese from Japan, she goes, "Ugh, I don't even get it." Every time we used to visit a beach near my grandmother's house in Barbados, my mother used to remind us of a young woman who came up to her and asked her what state she was in because her boyfriend was playing a practical joke on her and telling her they were outside of America, and everyone knows there's nowhere outside of America. I see there's a few escapees from the world domination Civ 5 timeline again. When someone mentioned that 1 in 3 people get cancer in their lifetime, another friend in the group said that the statistic is crap, and that he sees it as 50-50. Either you get it or you don't. This dude was studying architecture. Wonder if he thinks the odds of any building falling apart is 50-50 too. I wonder if he plays the lottery. Either you win or you don't win. Same odds. I once had a conversation with a co-worker who told me that they wished they had lived back in medieval times because it would have been fun to battle orcs and dragons. This was right when the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out and were very popular. At first, I assumed he was saying he would like to live in the LOTR universe. After a minute, I had a sudden realization. I came to realize he meant that he thought dragons and orcs and things like that really existed at one time. I, and several of our co-workers, spent the rest of the day, and months after, trying to convince him that wasn't the case. He strongly believed that during the dinosaur age there were also dragons, orcs, trolls etc, and we were fighting them with swords and knights. It was funny up until dinosaur age, at which point it advanced to completely hilarious. Not me, but a friend. She's from the Philippines and she legitimately got asked if she lived in the trees when she was there. I have a friend from Brazil who was also asked by a mutual friend if she and her family lived in a tree. She replied that because her family was so wealthy, they lived in 3 trees connected together. Former male co-worker was talking about various health problems in the office. He said that he checked his symptoms with WebMD and that one of the closest matches was gestational diabetes, but he couldn't find any cases of men getting it. One night after volleyball, we were hanging out at the bars. A mutual friend walks by at a pivotal moment in the conversation. My buddy asks him, "Hey, guy, how long does a pregnancy last?" He shrugs, says IDK 18 months. We got a good giggle out of it, and then I just died after finding out he was serious. We are 30 years old. You never said it was a human pregnancy. I worked in an open kitchen at the time. The boss told us we needed to wash our gloves, disposable latex, because he was having to buy too many. In fairness, those gloves can be reused if they're being used to protect your hands from whatever you're handling, but definitely not where food is concerned. Them. Will my phone keep taking pictures if the battery dies? Me. It depends on how much film you put in it. Them. Oh. Okay. Thanks. A pregnant girl at work just sort of put it out there that her baby got its nourishment through her belly button. Like as in she believes that somehow her child is getting fed through her own belly button, not the baby is getting nourishment through the umbilical cord and what would become its own belly button. Another girl was walking by us at the time and literally stopped mid-step, shook her head and then kept walking. We got our tests back and this kid turns to me and asks, "Does F stand for family?" A piece of my soul died that day. This was the 8th grade. No, F stands for friends who do stuff together. There was a dude in my chemistry class who apparently didn't believe in the atomic theory of matter. He claimed no one could see atoms, so there was no reason to believe they existed. The professor just told him that he still had to learn it or he would fail the class. Also, a girl in my circle of friends said evolution was impossible because a few thousand years wasn't enough time for all that. I only realized she was serious when she got pee at me for laughing at her. No one can see wind either. I guess wind doesn't exist. My ex and I were watching Jeopardy, and Alex Trebek read off an answer like, "The Inuit in Alaska were known to make this type of house out of frozen dihydrogen monoxide." My ex snorted and said, "There's no way they had those chemicals back then." Probably why she is your ex. Wife had a question for an assignment some time ago and Google wasn't a source. The question, how old are broiler chickens when they are killed? We had no idea, so I suggested we go to the chicken shop in the mall. Asked the question and the guy thought for a moment and replied 25 years. Then seeing the looks on our faces quickly changed to 17 years. In case you are wondering, the correct answer is usually 5 to 7 weeks, but sometimes up to 14 weeks. I was talking to a co-worker about global warming and how eventually polar bears could be extinct. He said, "What's a polar bear?" I said, "What do you mean?" He then said, "Well, a polar bear is nothing but a white colored bear, so they will just leave the Arctic and live in forests." I thought he was joking, but no, he wasn't. Polar bears are genetically similar enough to grizzlies that the two can interbreed if they encounter each other, so in one sense he is really not wrong. I met a girl who thought airplanes were UFOs, or flying saucers. It never occurred to her that they were airplanes. Well, I mean, if she didn't know what they were called. Not me, but someone I know. So he and his wife and their friends got to go to the Super Bowl. Last year maybe. They normally watch it live on TV. His wife says, in the most serious straight face ever, "Where are the yellow lines that tell the scores and stats and stuff?" To be fair, having those add-ons projected onto the field in real life would be kinda cool. I work in a shop in Cape Town, South Africa, dealing mainly with tourists. One of the things we stock is carved wooden animals. A few years ago a guy came in and was looking for a carved male hippopotamus. I was a tad confused, as the carvings clearly don't have sexes, but he was adamant. He wanted a male. With some more gesturing I finally found out what he was looking for. A rhino. He thought the horn of the rhino was an indication of being a male hippo. My husband and I were playing Cards Against Humanity with my sister, who is 21, and her boyfriend. She takes a card, looks at it, totally dumbfounded by it, tells us she has no idea what it means, but that it's something with an A and looks like German. My husband and I look at each other and say, almost in unison, "Is it Auschwitz?" "Yeah, what does that mean?" We started laughing, thinking she was kidding. I mean, it was cool after all. I figured she was just making a really dark joke or something. She was not. Her boyfriend then admits that he has no idea what it means either. Had to explain to my 21-year-old sister and her boyfriend about what Auschwitz was and what happened. Pulled up photos and some historical stuff online and had to chat it out for a good hour or more afterward. Both of them vote and are active in politics. Yeesh. That's what you get for going to high school in the Florida public school system, apparently. At work I got a wet washcloth and squirted some dish soap on it to wash off a table. Coworker freaks out. CW. OMG. You're not going to wash the table with that, are you? People could get sick. Me. What? Why inspects clean washcloth? CW. The soap. People will get shoots from the soap. Me. The soap that's meant for cleaning eating utensils? If they chugged it they would, but this will certainly not give anyone the shoots. No, I didn't say that. I stared at her completely dumbfounded that she was absolutely serious. When I was a new teacher, one of the old timers was venting in the teacher's lounge. She said, "This would be a great job if IT wasn't for the kids." I laughed, and she exploded at me. Told me I was still too young to hate them. She said I would grow up myself in a few years. That was 26 years ago. Kids are still 100% the best part of the job. I can't imagine anyone staying in education that hates kids. What a sorry life. What a sorry thing to do. How sorry for the kids. We were in English class and this guy is really trying hard to debate something with a teacher. Probably some Oxford comma crap or something. Anyways, he said something along the lines of, "Well, I had to repeat an English class before so I know this really well." I obviously start laughing and he turns around and says, "Zach, I am literally more smartest than you." I looked for 5 seconds to see anything but all I saw was the glaze of a Kevin. Have you seen the latest episode of the news? They legitimately thought world leaders were characters. I don't know how they got so far on life, but they have rich parents. Well, TBH, what happens in the US looks more like a comedy show than reality. My friend moved to another state from Alaska. When applying for a job, once they found out she had moved from Alaska, they asked if she would have any trouble providing proof of citizenship. Alaska is far and all, but it is still part of the US. The spork is the devil's utensil because it is the amalgamation of the masculine fork and the feminine spoon and is trying to blur gender lines in society. Gotta admit, it would be fun to live in a delusional world so action-packed the devil was in my cutlery. My sister and I were at my dad's house for his birthday dinner. My sister had brought her kids, my 4-year-old niece and 2-month-old twin boys. My sister was exhausted, she had hardly slept in the last 2 months and coming to dinner was the first time out of the house in a while. She looked like crap, but was happy to be there with lots of family to take care of the kids for a couple hours. My stepmonster, who has never had kids, asks her, "Are you tired?" She replies, "Yeah, the pregnancy was hard. I had complications from the C-section. They are not good sleepers or eaters. I'm always breastfeeding one of them. It's been a very hard couple months. I'm always taking care of one of them." Stepmonster replies, "Oh, that is hard. It sounds like when our dog was a puppy and we were kennel training her." Everyone turned to look at her, mouths agape, including my dad. She wasn't kidding. My sister says, "Yup, it's exactly like that." I twitches uncontrollably. I used to work at a popular fast casual soup sandwich restaurant. A woman asked my friend and I if there was cheese in the broccoli and cheddar soup. We laughed in her face. Turns out that's not how you're supposed to handle that situation. In my freshman year of college we regularly were served meatless chili con carne, so. Apparently seawater is salty because these ancient giants pushed large mountains of salt into the oceans billions of years ago. My face said it all when I heard that. Real men know that the sea is salty because it's the blood of the slain giant in it. Glad I could assist. I was checking out some cars with a friend at a car dealership that my friend was potentially interested in buying. I was just tagging along offering my opinion but wasn't interested in buying one myself. At one point the car dealership employee who was talking to my friend starts asking me questions like, would you be interested in buying a car too, have you owned a car before, etc. Long story short, I tell him that I used to own a Renault car when I was living in Europe, but Renault is a company that doesn't sell cars in the US as far as I know. The employee responded by saying that European cars are not available in the US because they don't have seatbelts or airbags. When I was walking my dog out, some lady asked my dog what my name was, and when the dog didn't respond, surprise surprise, she asked me why he didn't talk. She is also probably wondering why so many people in town are called Woof. This kid said he really wanted a communist country where you don't have to pay taxes. I proceeded to tell him that taxes pay for the construction of roads, etc. To which he replied, I hate roads, completely seriously. He said he was willing to hike to the local grocery store. If he hates taxes, he really hates communism. I live in New Mexico, and this summer I went up to NYC, and at my hotel it had a rooftop bar. I ordered a drink and got I'd on my 22nd birthday. Cool, no problem. The lady looks at me and admired and said she couldn't accept it because it isn't a United States issued ID. I explained to her that New Mexico is a part of the United States. She argued and got her manager, in which she asked me if I had a passport, and if I had that I could get my drink. The 49 states have a better education than New Mexico, and everyone still thinks New Mexico is Mexico. You would think the popularity of Breaking Bad would have helped spread the word. Evolution doesn't exist because pigs don't fly and water hasn't evolved, as per a very religious girl I used to be friends with. Religion is a hell of a drug. My brother told me today that he's pulling out his 401k way early despite the heavy penalties to invest in the stock market. This is because Trump is the president now, and unlike Obama, he's a businessman, so there's no way he can lose. This is his new retirement plan. Unless he's changed his pension scheme radically to be weighted to bonds and commodities or whatever, his pension should already be highly exposed to the stock market. This makes no sense. I hope your brother is young enough so in the long run it smooths out. My senior year in high school, a girl asked me if Grand Canyon was one word or two. We live in Arizona, less than 2 hours from the Grand Canyon, and she had visited the month before on a class trip. I thought the word hypocrite was spelled hypocrite because Hippocrates was always making things up on the fly. My high school nemesis never let me hear the end of it. In English for year 12, months before our final exam, we were watching Wag the Dog. During our practice essays, someone apparently treated the movie as if it was real. Our teacher started telling us how it was a movie and it didn't really happen. A girl's hand went up and she started asking questions about how they got the footage if it wasn't real. We suddenly realized why we're being told it's not real. My mom was so excited and says, add your age to the year you were born, so I reply 2017. And she says, but it's like that for everyone. Isn't that amazing? I laughed for a long while before my brother told me she was serious and now seriously embarrassed. This one got my husband too. He tried to convince me that adding your age to the year you were born and getting the current year only works this year. Miraculously, I managed to explain that wasn't true without laughing. His looked so sad that it wasn't real. I think I was in college at the time and in biology class when they went over some human anatomy, particularly the human reproductive system. Now, I learned a lot of the basics back in middle high school and didn't think much of it when they were talking about the female organs. But the girl next to me was seriously surprised when the professor mentioned there was a separate pee hole, urethra, and sex hole, vagina. I remember she looked at me with the widest eyes and said they're different holes. I mean, you'd be surprised how many people don't know that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.